Hello, I think we are live at Entropy and You. So forgive me if things aren't quite working, but I do appreciate feedback from the chat if you're able to see this. And welcome to the studio. So this is kind of like the dream, to be able to broadcast live to potentially the entire planet, even if nobody really knows about it yet. And basically practicing the teaching or the presenting of my discoveries on the origins of life, why and how are we here, and how do we get ordered structures like planets and living things when we kind of know that everything goes from order to disorder. So this is a question that I've never really let go, and recently we have real answers, scientific answers, more than, let's say, belief systems or feelings about how and why we're here. And I think it's really exciting. It opens up a whole new world of discovery about ourselves, about are we alone in the universe, and what do we even mean by we? So I'm going to continue my presentation and walk around. I would be able to chat live if the system is working. And so please feel free to interrupt and ask questions, or tell me where you're watching from even. That would be interesting. So let's walk around. Let's see if we can get the system to work. Microphone check. Yep. All right. So we're going to walk over to the wall, and you see this big diagram here, which you might recognize from your book, Entropy and You, recently published and available on Amazon on all formats. And it talks about the discovery of a concept called ODC, optimally dissipative configuration, which gives us a formula as to how we get organized structures from apparent disorder. And so in this diagram here, it's also the logo from the front of your book, Entropy and Symphony of Entropy. And here we've got the Big Bang that occurred about 13.8 billion years ago. And as we know, ultimately we're going to a state where everything is dispersed and blackness and nothingness. So we're still very much early in the lifespan of our universe, known universe, I should say. But as we know, as the Big Bang occurs, we get things like galaxies and nebulae and solar systems and planets. And as we get closer and closer to planets, we start to see some things that we call life. So how does that occur? And I will introduce to you now my favorite biophysicist. And he wrote an article, actually, about 10 years ago. I only found out about it about a couple of years ago. So let's see if I can get this to work. So this is, whoops. This is Jeremy England. He's my favorite biophysicist. And what he says here did not make front page news. And I've got a hello from Canada here, so we'll test to see if right in front of you here I can actually respond. Hi, Tara. Enter. See if that worked. So there's a lot of systems moving at the same time here, so, and there's been an evolution to it, which we'll talk about. So this guy here, he's a real physicist. He's got a PhD. He works at a real university, I think MIT, I want to say. So let's see what it says here. The biophysicist Jeremy England made waves in 2013 with a new theory that casts the origin of life as an inevitable outcome of thermodynamics. His equations suggested that under certain conditions, groups of atoms will naturally restructure themselves so as to burn more and more energy, facilitating the incessant dispersal of energy and the rise of entropy or disorder in the universe. England said this restructuring effect, which he calls dissipation, driven adaptation fosters the growth of complex structures, including living things. The existence of life is no mystery or lucky break, he told Quanta in 2014, but rather follows from general physical principles and should be as unsurprising as rocks rolling down a hill. Huge claim indeed, and that excites me. For me, I can't believe that that did not make front page news. It made front page news in my life. In fact, it changed my whole life because it finally gives us a real physical answer that we can test out and observe in the real world, a theory or law that a good way to test to see if something's true or not. Imagine zooming out of our galaxy and being in another galaxy, and you've got these aliens looking at our planet and they have their own planet or whatever. Would they come up with the same answers as we would? So things like math and science and thermodynamics, those things are universal. So I take that into account when I come up with theories and make statements, and I think we've got that today. So we'll get to this atomizer thingy in a bit. It'll demonstrate how seemingly random atoms and molecules form into organized structures, but not randomly, even though it might seem random because every time we do this shaking of the molecules, we get a different response. That has to do with chaos theory. But let's continue and checking. I can try to check live to see if anybody's interacting. And maybe I'll show you guys what this thing is that I'm holding in my hand here. So we're making our way to the chalkboard. So this guy, Jeremy England, right, he just said that life is like a bunch of rocks rolling down a hill, or at least as inevitable as that. And we can double check this here. It should be as unsurprising as rocks rolling down a hill. I like that. Let's pause this camera angle here. See if that worked. And a rock rolling down a hill. So again, if we're thinking about entropy going from order to disorder always, and we can feel that, we know because for example, if we drop a dye in a glass of water, it's going to disperse. We kind of intuitively know that if we don't fix our rooms or clean up around us, things kind of get disordered. We have this intuitive knowing of this. But it's not intuitive how we should come up with very organized structures or optimally dissipative configurations such as us from randomness or from entropy. And the solution to that is, it took me a few years to get this, so let me know in the comments if you're getting ooh, cool, we got share link by StreamYard. I'm not sure what that means. Hello, Nirvana. And the way this works is that if a ball was, or a rock was up a hill, it would naturally roll down. And what we have here is when, for example, these represent two planets. One planet Earth, let's say, with no life on it, and one with life on it. And what happens is that the one with the life on it is the one that dissipates more energy or is more entropic than the other one. And that's the ball rolling down a hill. So for example, all this energy comes from the sun, and it creates all this potential energy, this energy source like a fuel or a piece of wood that wants to be burned. But if there's nothing to burn it, nothing happens. That is why complex structures occur randomly, but when they work, they stick. It's an exothermic reaction that'll retain that configuration. These are the laws of thermodynamics. The first one says that we can't create or destroy anything, and we kind of know that one. Things only get transferred or moved around from one phase to another. The second law of thermodynamics states that everything goes from order to disorder. And this is where we have, let's go back to multiple. This is where we kind of have an amendment to this law with this ODC, optimally dissipative configuration. And proposed this very simple formula here. S represents entropy plus ODC. So entropy is kind of like the force, the movement from order to disorder. The ODC gives it structure and direction where you can actually get things. So as illustrated in the book, The Symphony of Entropy, in that camera, I show how all of this works. And it's based on older physical concepts that are already established. I'm not really inventing much, more so presenting in my own way what I've learned. And so one of the ultimate questions that I came to when I was a child, and I actually saw recently in another type of video, and we'll pause here, I like this angle, is the concept that people would say, who believe, let's say, in intelligent design or a higher power or some kind of a God or divine intervention, they would say, you can't just have humans or life be created out of nowhere. It would be like saying that we put all the parts of a clock or a Boeing 747, randomly run a tornado through it, and they would come out being a fully functional clock or Boeing 747. And I would honestly ponder that over and over. Like, what is that? What is it about that analogy that's a challenge? We created the airplane, and so what created us? And today we have answers for this. So we kind of have to zoom out and be open-minded to what exactly are we as humans? What is our function in the universe? And we come up with the fact that an airplane or a clock or anything that we've invented that you see on this table or all these computers and 80s paraphernalia came about because they actually serve the human. They serve the survival, reproduction, and entropic output and comfort of the human. And so it's difficult, I understand that it's difficult for us humans to think of ourselves as merely, and I put that in quotes, merely radiators, if you will, or structures that are optimally dissipative, which is why we're here. And there was an evolution to this. But that is the answer. That is the thermodynamic answer as to how and why we're here. And we wouldn't be here if we weren't dissipating more entropy or force than anything else before us. And there's an evolution to that. We don't just come out as humans, we come out first as very complex structures that eventually become us. That's the answer, and again, it's probably brand new to most people, and I'm kind of new still at teaching it. And so let's walk around some more. I did talk about how when we put, let's say, a dye in a glass of water, how intuitively we know what's going to happen. So let's walk over to the holodeck over here. Ooh, this is fun, huh? And if you have any questions, I will attempt to see them in time and maybe answer them. So what we have here, we're going to drop some ink in this white space here. And this is all being done live, no post-editing. And so when I view these videos after the fact, I ask myself, how could they be better? What did I do wrong? And all that stuff. So here, we know intuitively that eventually this is all going to be all black. And we're actually much earlier in the history of our universe than even that. We're right at the beginning at 13.8 billion years. It's going to take trillions and trillions of years for us to get to a point where it's just all blackness, and who knows if another galaxy or universe is going to explode and conquer us. But we're here and now, and our lifespan, it doesn't even comprehend how much longer we're around for. But the point of this here little video is that you can see how we can already see structures forming earlier on. And so why are those structures the way they are? And the answer to this is optimally dissipative configuration. It couldn't possibly have been any different based on their parameters and how they're affected by thermodynamics. and at the same time, they're unique. So in other words, you couldn't reproduce that exact same configuration ever because there's so many minute details that go into going there. And this is part of the challenge in seeing ourselves as, yes, very unique, but we weren't, first of all, predetermined to look like we are, and that's a difficult thing for humans to wrap their heads around, I think, because we're so beautiful and complex, and we have thoughts, and we can contemplate about ourselves and where we came from. So we're unique, and we're separate from all of the rest of the laws, and I think that builds an inherent, let's call it a duality within us, where we don't feel like we're a part of or belonging, but thankfully with this new concept of optimally dissipative configuration, we can see that we are indeed a part of in a beautiful way. We have a whole world to explore with this wonderfulness. So you can see some swirls happening over there, some more paints in water, which I think are really beautiful. And if we zoom in a little bit, see how it kind of it looks like the night sky, and I'm going to actually move it over to one of our own nebulae in Orion, and how it is so reminiscent, and we can create this, and this is a real life nebula that creates stars. A couple of more things while we're here. Some people ask about the dinosaur here behind me, and it was actually built from 3D printers like these, about 1,200 of them. I want to show also that I'm still in the old abandoned schoolhouse there, where this channel started at Days Post-Apocalyptic World. So I'm still here, and I could answer about this too. Ooh, we've got a Hercule from Belgium. Hi. Hercule from Belgium. I was actually in Belgium. Sorry, I didn't capitalize that. I was actually in Belgium a few years ago for work. So thank you for sharing that. And okay, let's move over to a recent TikTok video that I did, and one of the questions that always fascinated me is here we've got a night city traffic of a city, and we see cars going to and from in a very organized way, and here we've got the arteries of the blood vessels in a tadpole, a city, units of cars going to and from, dispersing nutrients. These are going to cells, and in the city, they're going to houses and buildings. And so, and I saw this as a child when in an airplane, and so is this a coincidence? Is there a similarity between why should those structures be so similar? And yet we invented, or we came up with these streets and cities, and yet if we look at what happens in our own bodies, a similar occurrence happens. And so that also brings us together in this whole optimally dissipative configuration and evolution that occurs. At this time, let's move on over back to the atomizer. How about that? We're going to move this guy. Maybe I'll introduce you to Nebula even. Yeah, let's go to the desk. And I will post this video so that people can watch it afterwards. And let's get rid of this guy. Hi. As I'm still testing out the system, what we're going to do now is see if we can find a cat to zoom out of here. And I can also kind of show you around my studio. So even though not really many people are here, this was kind of the dream to be able to press a button and actually potentially be broadcasting to the whole planet potentially. And there's Nebula. I don't know if she's my mascot, but That's my cat. My pet cat, I should say. I don't think she knows that. And I got my drink of water. So now you see here this atomizer. We're about to walk towards it. And what that's going to do, it's a model for, as we walk to it. It's a model simulation for how molecules and atoms find each other seemingly randomly. However, it is not random at all. So that's the big revelation. Even though it's going to look very random, they're actually at every stage of their life moving to the next thing that's optimally dissipative. And they each have random magnets on them, and so they're going to move in pairs of 2s and 3s. And so we're going to let this run for about 30 seconds. And let's try that. Atom. Hopefully that worked. One even escaped. See, that couldn't have been predicted. And so we see also that they ended up in some kind of a configuration. In this case, they're congregating there towards the center, and over here, this is because this is an uneven platform. It's not perfectly even. And that's one of the parameters that resulted in this optimally dissipative configuration. It's always different, also because of chaos theory and how, let's move here. In chaos theory, the initial conditions plus all of the parameters that are going to affect them determine the final outcome. And that's why we can't ever reproduce the same storm. We can't ever reproduce the same nebulae or instant or even us, because we're the result of billions, literally billions of years of evolution and change. And that's the story behind that. So if there's any questions, I would answer them. However, if not, then we're now going to go to, we've been on for, 22 minutes. We're going to do the Galileo spiel now. Now, what is the Galileo spiel? We're going to go to the mezzanine, if that works. Maybe the cat will join us over there, huh? What is Galileo? As some people know that Galileo, for a few hundred years ago, he was an astronomer, a scientist, and he worked with a similar, actually Copernicus also had a telescope and did a lot of things. Let's put that here. And here's the analogy with what scientists of the past have always had a challenge when they discover something new. It could be Darwin, it could be countless others. When a major shift in human paradigm or understanding of the universe, there's a challenge because most human beings on the planet, all of them actually, have some kind of a belief or a religion or a knowledge of how things actually occurred. So in this case with Galileo, in the 1600s or so, the Earth was the center of the universe. I'll just say it. And it makes sense. That's all we knew. That's all we could see. Everything is relative to us, so we're the center. But some people with a telescope eventually knew for a fact they would see how the planets don't quite follow what the stars are doing. And eventually they can build a model and be 100% sure that, oh no, we're actually just one of many planets going around the sun. And that's just fact. However, even though that's the truth, the prevailing belief of the time was not happy with that. They weren't having it. And in fact, that knowledge, that science was rejected. He was on house arrest, I believe, Other people in history, of course, they get treated even worse because the truth interferes with the belief systems. And when we speak of the origin of life, I feel like we encounter that very much. Looks like my mom and dad are watching. That's kind of neat. And so very much so, when we talk about the origin of life, the same thing happens in the sense that it makes people uncomfortable that their belief system might be challenged. And I respect that. I understand perfectly well that that's true, and we need to respect people's beliefs and religions. At the same time, there's a natural advancement to what humanity is going to do. And so there's going to be a transition period, and this is what this channel is all about acknowledging that humans, even people who have strong religious beliefs, they know that there's also thousands of other religions out there that people also believe in their religion, and maybe the problem occurs when we believe that our system is the only true one, and that's when there's like a short wire in the brain where that just doesn't make sense. And so with science, we can kind of bring everybody together, potentially, or in time. So I think I make these videos now, even though almost nobody are watching them, because maybe 20 or 30 years from now, we'll laugh and say, oh yeah, this guy all by himself, well, amongst just a few people, we're trying to push this idea of how and why we're here. And it was controversial now or then, but in the future, that'll just be as normal as the Earth spinning around the sun, even though not everybody believes that either. So let's go back to the desk and see where we are. So even though not that many people are watching, this really was the dream, to be able to interact live in the studio and answer questions if anybody have them. And hopefully in time, I don't have very high hopes for this channel, more so maybe making a few friends and practicing my delivery of how I should present all of this information and taking feedback from you. And there is an evolution. So in previous channels, for example, there were problems with sound or the lighting over there that you can see with the sun shining on the green screen, for example. And so I put up some curtains to change that. Also, when I worked the atomizer that you can see there at in the forefront, when I worked with that, it was so noisy that it would actually kind of drown out the microphone, and it was annoying. So I press a button now, and it lowers the microphone and gives you some music during that. And I bring this up because there's a natural evolution to make things better. And so I asked myself, why is that? Why is it that the automobiles of today are much more fancy and efficient than the first ones, or how life was smaller and less complex than it is today? And again, we attribute that back to the optimally dissipative configuration that you can learn about in my book, The Symphony of Entropy, available on Amazon. And the beauty of that is that there's a natural flow of human invention and also in the cosmos. And that unifying link is the optimally dissipative configuration. And so we say that it's human intelligence that I should improve the output of this channel, but what it does, it actually benefits the human doing it. If it's a better channel, more people maybe will watch it and subscribe, and it'll make my life better or easier. And the reason that happens in the universe normally is because people who are better able to survive and reproduce and be comfortable, and we've got a visitor here. Yeah. Say hello to Nebula. She's always got to interrupt the show. She thinks it's all about her. Hey. Okay. And so this is the link that we find between the intelligence of humans and the intelligence of the universe is optimally dissipative configuration, because just like we saw in the atomizer, if there was a potential source of energy, just like we find fossil fuels and make them serve us with cars and airplanes, Nothing else did that before humans did, and that helps the humans thrive. Similarly, anytime there's a new organism in town or on Earth, they quote unquote exploit their resources and dissipate them. That is the natural order of the universe. But this also works at the molecular level, where we may never find the exact pathway as to how quote unquote life started, because it's going to be hard to find fossils, but we still know that that's the direction that they went into. All right, so we're going to close up this little short video. I'm glad everybody attended and that the system seems to work. And based on it, I think I'll make improvements next time as well. And I really appreciate it. I'm watching this series. So we'll see you next time on Entropy and You. Bye.